Welcome to Taking Notes, a music review series where I listen to music that's new to me, not necessarily newly released, just new to my ears. I've fallen out of listening to music recently, and anytime I get stopped for my opinion on music or recommendations for new music, I end up just drawing blanks. This series is my way of getting back into listening and being able to form clearer opinions about my musical tastes and a better understanding of the current music scene. The first artist I'll be reviewing is named Sloen. He's a French multi-instrumentalist and composer, and he specializes in prog rock, math rock, and post-rock. His sound can be described as lush, atmospheric, and emotional, with lots of slow, big builds into wall of sound moments. The overall tone feels melancholic and nostalgic, but still overall hopeful. He also mixes and masters his own tracks and edits and directs his own videos, which just proves that he's a one-person creative machine. The album I'll be reviewing today is For All the Days Gone, which is set to release January 16th, 2026. The first track on the album is called At the Edge of Reality. It starts with a melancholic guitar melody, strings that are deep and soulful, and a drum beat that's laid back in a 6/8 shuffle kind of feel. The band takes time to let each part breathe. The strings have their little moment, but the bass is what really shines here in my opinion. The bass is clear and deep, and it doesn't just have root notes, it's playing actual little figures and lines, which I actually appreciate because I play bass myself. The track begins to build, adding more distortion, cymbals, and bigger energy overall. This first peak seems bigger and more epic in character, but then it soon pulls back again. It's at this moment that a really cool tapping guitar figure comes in, as well as a chugging kind of rhythm on the bass and the drums. The layers keep stacking, like the guitar's playing tremolo, there's bass adding more intensity, and the drums even add a little bit more of a intricate hi-hat pattern. I love intricate hi-hat patterns. The final section switches to 4/4 instead of 6/8, which I feel brings a little bit more intensity and maybe a sense of anticipation. Then it goes into a double time speed and even actually increases the tempo outright to eventually resolve the song on the final one chord. Track 2 is Rebuilding What Was Lost. This starts with ambient guitar and strings as before, and the bass and drums kick in a little bit later. This part's particularly cool because the drums are technically in 4, but it's a little bit masked because the snare is displaced and the kick drum only comes in on the downbeat, otherwise it's completely missing, which in my opinion adds a certain sense of uncertainty or uneasiness. There's a classic build-up again, a little bit more distortion and some atmosphere, but then it drops back down again to introduce a new instrument, the piano. Next, the meter becomes the element to focus on, with a phrase that's built on 3 bars of 5 and 1 bar of 7. And I think the reason that he added that extra bar of 7 is because those extra 2 beats just really seem to add a sense of determination or conviction to the rhythm and to the overall character of the piece, and it really just helps to round out and solidify the groove. Overall, it's a pretty cool track. Okay, so this next track is called The Shape of Things to Come, and it starts with a really cool arpeggiated guitar groove and this neat little drum beat that again disguises the fact that it's in 4/4. A ticking hi-hat then slowly starts to build the tension, and just before the big expected hit, the strings step in for a soft interlude to delay it. The full band drops out briefly, but then explodes back in with a ton of energy. After that, the track ends abruptly, leaving the listener kind of wanting more, but in the best possible way. Track 4 is called If We Meet Again Somehow, and this one's pretty neat because it introduces the vocals of Swan Porter. Her voice fits the mood and the tone of this album perfectly. It's dreamy, distant, and emotional. Even during the loud sections where her vocals cut through clearly, which is a testament to her skills, but also the mixing and mastering skills of Sloen. Track 5 is called But a Distant Memory, and this one is probably by far my favorite track on the entire album. Not so much about the musical content itself, but just because of what it is in context of all the rest of the tracks. It's an interlude. Where all the other tracks are averaging about 6 minutes, this one clocks in at only about 45 seconds. And quite frankly, it's pretty cool and refreshing, honestly. You start off listening to the track. It's got this really cool sort of bluesy guitar solo, obviously lots of ambience and atmosphere. And then before you know it, it's over. You're into the next track. And it's surprising, it's refreshing, and it's kind of cool, and it's kind of like a nice breather, a nice little rest or a relaxation from all the crazy intensity that came before it, with the ups and the downs and the intense vocals and the tremolo guitars and the lush atmospheres. It, again, can't speak highly enough about it, and honestly I kind of wish there were more tracks like this, maybe 2 or 3 other small interludes, something similar, something with a piano, something with a bass, just something else like this, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, just to, again, add this cool little, these sort of side thoughts to the bigger conversation. Okay, so the final track of the album is the title track, For All the Days Gone. This one follows a similar slow burn formula, starts off chill, starts to slowly build up to an epic peak, then it erupts and pulls back. Then it has a secondary build up, and you would think that it would have another peak and maybe pull back again like it typically does, but in this case, it actually continues the energy and excitement. And this brings me to my favorite part of the entire track and possibly the entire album. The track ends with this incredibly heavy, grimy, brutal riff. Low, brutal, powerful, just altogether incredible way to end the album, as the whole band is just pouring in basically all the energy they can into this syncopated, just destructive rhythm. This is by far my favorite section on the entire album, and now that I know that it's a possibility of the sound palette to go onto the album, it leaves me wanting more, and it kind of upset me, honestly, because of the just tiny little taste that I got. I wanted so much more of this, almost an entire track, but I would be happy with just 1 or 2 other sections that are similar to it. And this brings me to my final thoughts on the album. Overall, this is a super solid album for me. I could listen to it multiple times and still enjoy it. It's got strong musicianship, strong production value, strong songwriting. It's incredibly creative, and got plenty of cool textures to keep your interest and keep the engagement. Some highlights for me are obviously the little interlude track number 5, the incredibly brutal ending of the album in that track 6, some of the cool little instrument spotlights, like the strings shining through, the bass getting to shine through, the neat little hi-hat drum parts and drum fills, and the unexpected odd time signatures and the masking of the 4/4 grooves is also particularly intriguing to me. So it kept my interest throughout the entire album, especially when I noticed that they were happening. Every once in a while, the cool thing was I didn't really notice. I was just caught up in the groove. And after a while, I sort of realized something's a little off here, and it made me pay attention more. And I appreciate that kind of stuff. Texture changes like the guitar tapping, the tremolo guitar picking, the ticky hi-hats mixed with the big open washing cymbals is all, again, another big highlight for me, as it kind of constantly evolves and keeps your engagement and your interest throughout. It makes for a deeper, more dynamic tracks and more impactful album as a whole. The main drawback for me on this album is the lack of variety in form. It becomes a little bit predictable over time, so I would appreciate maybe a little change up in the song structure or the album structure in total. One of my thoughts would be maybe start a track with a large atmospheric section and then dial it back eventually to maybe a percussive guitar tapping section, or start with one of those low, powerful, grimy sections, and then eventually whittle that down to maybe a bluesy guitar solo section that's reminiscent of track 5. That said, I understand that this album is a collection of new and old tracks, so the consistency sort of makes sense in that context. This album is perfect for situations like long car trips or even doing work on the computer. I was literally working on my computer yesterday listening to this album, and the time just flew by doing the work because I was enjoying the music. It wasn't so distracting to take me out of my work, but also wasn't so boring that it just felt monotonous or obnoxious in the background. It's also one of those albums, again, that you could focus in on and get tons of little details. So it's actually great for re-listens over time because you end up picking out more out of it every time. I'm giving For All the Days Gone an 8.5 out of 10 because, well, structurally it's closer to an 8 because of the predictability and form, but that extra point 0.5 is going to push it over the edge because of tracks like But a Distant Memory, which really caught my interest, and obviously the ending of track 6, For All the Days Gone, that just utterly incredible, brutal ending that I absolutely loved. Those moments really showed, to me at least, a serious compositional intent that felt like it sets it apart from other albums I've heard. In order for this album to be a 9, it would need to have obviously a little bit more of the variation and possibly stronger setups and transitions for some of those sections in between. Every once in a while, you have a slow build, and all of a sudden it would abruptly switch to a slightly bigger atmospheric section, and it just kind of took me out of the vibe a little bit. So check out Sloen's music, support the album if you can, and let me know what you think of it. Like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.